Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this session of Spokane Public Schools Keep Learning Series for Literacy. Today's lesson is for all our fourth graders out there, and any child who's interested is welcome to join us. My name is Sarah, and I'm an instructional coach at Cooper Elementary in Spokane Schools, and I will be your teacher for today's lesson. I'm so glad you'll be participating with me today. If you didn't see our previous lesson, you can find it on the KSPS website. You can still tune in to today's lesson if you haven't seen any of our others. Today we are going to reread a historical fiction story called Writing Freedom. To analyze the text, we are going to pay close attention to Charlotte and how her life changed after she lost her eye. For today's lesson, you will need a piece of paper and something to write with. I will give you a moment to gather your supplies. Today we are reading Writing Freedom by Pam Munoz Ryan, illustrated by Mark Scott. In the mid-1800s, when most girls are not allowed to have paid jobs, Charlotte Parkhurst disguises herself as a boy in order to work with horses. She goes by the name of Charlie and keeps her true identity a secret. Years later, Charlie moves from Rhode Island to an area near Sacramento, California. There, she and her friends, James and Frank, drive horse-drawn stagecoaches for a living. Suddenly, a bad accident leaves Charlotte partially blind. Now, with only one good eye left, Charlotte must relearn how to drive a coach. The next day, she overturned the coach completely, but was able to jump free. What was she doing wrong? She knew how to drive a team. She didn't need training with the horses or the ribbons. She knew those things by heart. It was her eye she didn't know. She needed to train her one good eye. She needed to learn how to use it all over again. She started taking a smaller team out every day. First, a 2-horse team, then a 4, finally with 6 in the hand. Charlotte had been proving herself her whole life, and she wasn't about to stop now. She didn't even care if Frank and James caught on to what she was doing. They might as well see me trying, she thought. She learned the different sounds the horses' hooves made on different types of roads. If the road was hard, the hooves made a hollow, clopping sound. If the road was soft, the hooves made a dull, thudding sound. She relied on her one good eye to take over for the other. She trusted her senses, and the 6th sense she had for handling horses. Charlotte drove back and forth over her route and memorized every rock and tree. She set a goal for herself. If she made 10 clean round-trip runs, she'd know she was as good as the next driver. After that, she'd just have Frank and James to convince. Let's read the text box in the image. It says genre, historical fiction. What is the setting of this story? How might the setting affect the story events? So the setting of Writing Freedom is especially important because this is a historical fiction story. Historical fiction takes place long ago and is realistic. The characters are like real people, and the events are ones that actually could happen. The setting shows what life was really like at that time. Let's look back at the introduction. What does it tell us about the setting? It was the mid-1800s in California. Which events in the story would not have happened in a modern setting? You're right. Charlotte would not have to disguise herself as a man, and people would not be riding in stagecoaches. Let's continue to think about the setting and Charlotte's life as we read. After the 10th clean run, Charlotte went to James. I want to drive the stage run over the river. Now, Charlie, we've been over all that. Me and Frank think. You ride with me, and if you don't think I'm fit, then I won't bother you again, said Charlotte. What will the passengers say about your eye patch, said James. Just tell them it's to frighten off bandits. They won't know any different. I don't know. Charlotte defended herself. You know my reputation. I traveled all this way. Riding coaches is the whole reason I came to California. And I came because you asked me to come. You know I've been practicing. Go by my past driving, that's all I'm asking. And I wouldn't be asking if I didn't know I could drive. Reluctantly, James said, the first sign that you can't handle the situation, I take the reins. I'll tell you if I need help. Don't go stepping in unless I ask. Fair enough, said James. Tomorrow? Tomorrow if the weather holds. I ain't going to be a fair weather driver, said Charlotte. I want to drive same as usual like all the other drivers. Well, I guess you deserve this much. Tomorrow, rain or shine. It was one of those storms where the rain came down in wash tubs, but the stage was scheduled to go. The coach was chock full of passengers, baggage, and mail pouches that had to get through. Charlotte was soaked clear through by the time the baggage was secured. James rode shotgun next to her. The wind wouldn't let up, and the rain came flying in every which direction. James seemed nervous. Charlie, I can't even see the road, he yelled. Then it's a good thing I'm driving because I can smell it and I can hear it, yelled Charlotte. James sat back as the coach headed into the storm. The mud was so thick it reached the hubs, but Charlotte still found the road. When they reached the river, it had swelled almost to the bridge supports. Charlotte stopped the stage on the north bank. Stay inside, she told the passengers. I'll be checking the bridge. Charlotte took off her gloves and carefully walked across the swaying timbers to see if the bridge was worthy. She stopped a few times and listened to the moans of the wood. She felt the swollen planks and pulled on the guard ropes until she was satisfied. She walked back to the stage and told the passengers to get out. Ain't no reason to risk your lives, said Charlotte. James, I'm going to walk you and these fine people over to the other side to wait for me there. But a portly gentleman refused to budge. I'll take my chances inside the coach, he said. Not on my coach, said Charlotte. I'm familiar with adventure, young man, he argued. The bridge can't take any extra weight, and I'm not about to lose my first passenger to that river. Now step out, or I'll help you step out. Still grumbling, the man reluctantly climbed down. In the blinding rain, Charlotte escorted the group, a few at a time, across the bridge. When they were safely settled on the other side, she walked back for the stage. Let's stop for a minute and read the text box at the bottom. Personification. Authors sometimes use a type of metaphor called personification. Personification gives human characteristics to non-living objects. Do you know what a metaphor is? It describes something as if it were something else, like glass marbles of hail. The glass marbles are not really hail. Personification is a type of metaphor, like we read below, that gives a non-living thing human qualities, like sunshine smiling kindly. So sunshine, it doesn't smile. That's personification. Story writers add human feelings to their descriptions to help create the right mood, such as a happy, scary, or gloomy mood. In which sentence does the author use personification to describe something? If you remember when I was reading on the last page where it says the moan of the wood, that is an example of personification. So what makes this personification? You're right. Moans are sounds that people make when they're hurt or scared. Wood cannot actually moan or be scared or hurt. Wood doesn't have feelings. So what does the author mean by this? The wood's making noises that make it sound as though it's in pain. And what kind of mood does that create? I think that this metaphor creates a feeling of fear in the text. Let's continue reading. She got back in the box. Thunder growled nearby. She knew what was coming next. She held tight to the ribbons and waited for the lightning. It hit within a mile, but she kept the horses reined. Trusting her instincts, she inched the horses and the stage across the bridge. The timbers groaned as the iron-capped wheels clacked across the wooden planks. Ahead, the passengers huddled together and watched anxiously from the other side. The river raced a few feet beneath the wheels. The bridge rocked and the horses reared and whinnied. The coach was smack in the middle of the bridge. Charlotte kept her sights on the far bank. She heard the splintering and cracking of weathered wind that meant the bridge was coming apart. She stood up in the box. "Keep them straight on the bridge, Charlotte." Dashing the water from her good eye and gathering the reins in a firm grip, she cracked her whip and yelled, "Away!" She was thrown back into the box. The horses jibbed side to side, but she held tight to the ribbons. They flew across like scared jackrabbits. The back wheels barely turned on solid ground when the bridge collapsed and dropped into the churning river. "Whoa, my beauties, whoa!" yelled Charlotte. The passengers hurried back to the stage, clamoring about the excitement, while Charlotte settled the team. "We could have all fallen in," one woman gasped. "My heart's a-pounding," a man exclaimed as others joined him. "We would have drowned." "He saved my life," said the gentleman who had almost refused to leave the coach. And by the way they were talking, and James was nodding his head, Charlotte knew there wouldn't be a question about her driving a stage again. So last time we were together, we completed a Venn diagram comparing and contrasting the thoughts and feelings of Charlotte and the passengers. Today, we will be using text evidence to determine how life was different for Charlotte after she lost her eye. We will respond to the story by answering the question and using evidence from the text to support. Do you remember from last week our race to answer the question using our race strategy? That's what we'll be using today to respond to the text. So here we have our R, which stands for restate the prompt. The A is for answer the question. And I have those together because remember, we restate the prompt so that we can answer the question in a complete sentence. C1 is our first piece of text evidence, and C2 is our second piece of text evidence. The E stands for explain how the evidence supports your answer. So go ahead and get your piece of paper and your writing tool and write down the question. How is life different for Charlotte after she loses her eye? What evidence in the story supports your answer? I'll give you a moment. So the first thing we need to do is restate the prompt. After Charlotte loses her eye, Next, we need to answer the question. So I wrote, after Charlotte loses her eye, she learns to depend on other senses, like hearing. My first piece of text evidence was that she learned the different sounds the hooves of the horses made on different types of roads. That is a piece of evidence from the text that showed me that she is depending on other senses to keep getting the job done. The second piece of text evidence I found was on page 475, it said that she trusted her senses and the sixth sense she had for handling horses. Now, I took that right out of the text, so I put quotation marks in the part that I took out of the text. The last thing we need to do is explain in our own words how this evidence supports our answer. So I wrote, Charlotte had to use one eye to do the work that two eyes would normally do. This was difficult, so she found other ways to help her when it came to riding horses and driving stagecoaches. So what I wrote down here, it helps explain how the text evidence supports my answer. Great job today. You used text evidence to write about how the main character's life was different after she had a big event occur in her life. I've enjoyed doing some literacy learning with you today. Thank you for joining me as you keep learning from home. I look forward to seeing you for our next lesson here on KSPS. Bye.